be the case.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have the, good morning, everyone. Good morning. The agenda ahead of us. Is there any additions, corrections, or deletions?
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, got a motion on the floor. We need a second.
I'll
second
it.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. With that, we have the minutes from last week's board meeting. Has everybody got a chance to review those?
I had a question about it that I asked Courtney about. It's at the bottom of page 1 where we voted the resolution to adopt the fiscal year. It says, it also says, Courtney, I forgot, it says adoption of fiscal year 15 budget there in bold.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it needs to be 16.
Yeah.
And then I'm marked as an I there. It clearly says that I was a nay, but I asked if I should be, another column be created there as a nay and added to that column.
I think that's the way it was.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it just, she said she went back and looked at some others, but, I don't know, fiscal year 12 budget, I think I voted against, but I don't know if it was that way or not, but,
We'll just change it, it's not a big deal.
okay. Other than that, I saw no other corrections, but I would urge those. With that, I'd make a motion to accept the minutes with those corrections.
And I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve last week's minutes with the corrections. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we go down to old business. First item on the agenda is health insurance broker presentations. Terry?
Terry, you just pull a chair up here and,
For Terry's sake, should we do introductions?
sure.
Gene, you want to start off?
Gene Miners, Morning, Terry. Neil Bach. Neil, good morning.
Morning, Terry. Marty Danza.
Mark Beardmore again, Terry.
Dean Shetler.
Dean, good morning.
And
Courtney,
Yeah,
good to
nice
see you again.
Yep.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me here. I brought just a very minimal amount of materials. Soft bound. If anybody gets one where something's out of place, the blame's on me. I put these together. Normally, we have some communications folks who help us with that, but I was working on this after Friday. Just like to take a minute to introduce myself and our firm to you guys. Cottingham & Butler's about 125 years old. I oftentimes tell people that we're one of the best kept secrets in Iowa. Iowa has some large insurance brokers in it. Folks down in Des Moines, somebody talked to earlier, maybe last week, it's the largest in the state. Cottingham & Butler is second largest in the state, and we are in the top 37 of the top 100 in the United States. We're approaching about $120 million in revenue. And you just don't see us advertised at the Hawkeye games or the Cyclone games. We pretty much have done it by word of mouth. We're fourth generation. John Butler is approximately 80 years old. I'm sorry to say that he's in better shape than I am. He's at work every day and took the company from 4 people to now we're just under 625 with a little over 400 of them being Iowa-based. Our main operations are out of Dubuque. Offices in Waverly, Cedar Falls, Florida, Chicago, California, Pittsburgh. We're kind of all over the map. Our expertise, we came with partially self-funded health plans and employee benefits is one of our main area of expertise. Another area where a lot of people would have heard of us is transportation. We do a lot of management of captives. So one of our themes is alternative risk financing, which sometimes health insurance plans are, if they're self-funded. Back when ERISA was passed, before any of this was on my radar, I don't even know if I was in high school, when ERISA was passed, Cottingham & Butler has a sister company, a third-party claims payer called Cisco. And that's how we really dove into employee benefits. At that time, we used to do a lot of self-funding with cities, counties, waterworks, regional hospitals, and they could beat the insurance carriers at it. The guy who actually brought the idea to Cottingham to self-fund is a man by the name of Marvin Becker, who was the CFO of Flex Steel, which is a little company over in Dubuque. And Marvin's son is now our president and CEO, David Becker. He went to law school at Harvard, came back, became a McKinsey consultant, and came back to Dubuque. So we've got a long, rich history of being in Iowa. Recently, we were approached by Wellmark so we did a lot of work in the public entities, and then the network that would be rented in self-funding, Midland's Choice. A lot of you guys, maybe if you've ever done much in health insurance, have heard of Midland's Choice. Omaha, they kind of lost their pricing horsepower to the Blues and United and companies like that. So plans kind of migrated back over to the insured arena or self-funded, and many of them went direct with United or the Blues. Sometimes we stayed involved, sometimes we didn't, but we also evolved to become more of a broker instead of just working with Cisco. So currently, less than 20% of our business revolves around Cisco, 54% of our practice is self-funded, 46% of our practice is fully insured, and recently, Wellmark approached us about kicking off a new 28E trust for the purchase of health insurance. So we call them Iowa Community Trust. And so I took Western Iowa and Northwestern Iowa, that's where I called and did my calling. I've got family in Omaha and a lot of friends in Omaha. And so I met Courtney. Now, I don't know that the Iowa Community Trust is right for you folks this year, but when I was meeting with Courtney and she at least mentioned that you had an insurance subcommittee, and I connected with Mark by email and got invited to this meeting. So without further ado, I've kind of done the C&D introduction. And this tab that's called Scope of Services, I'd like to I wish I would have labeled that the proposal. So here's my understanding of where you're at. The health insurance is a partially self-funded plan with Walmart Blue Cross Blue Shield. That partially self-funded means there's stop loss in place. It's been there for 23 years, something like that. I don't know how long it's been direct, maybe all of those, that there hasn't been a broker involved. And it's been a long time since another insurance carrier has been asked. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So the fiscal year 2016 proposed renewal results in a 10.1% increase to the estimated suggested rates. The proposed increase on the individual stop loss staying at 50,000 is 18.6%. That's well ahead of medical inflation. The plan enrollment is very stable, as you also oftentimes see in a municipality or public plan. But just to back up and let you know that the numbers that I've seen would equate to about 1.875. The expected cost is 1.84 million. And I did a little math for you. We are really big on metrics, and we're kind of geeks. So if you take your 131 employees, we're at the expected cost next year is $14,050 per employee per year. Also, as your renewal comes, you purchase this aggregate coverage. There's a stop loss of 50,000 on any one person, but there's a stop loss policy that bought when a certain number of claims is hit, you're done. You pay no more. That's the ultimate protection, and state law requires that you purchase that. But I didn't know if anybody had done the calculation. If this plan hit its max next year, which with your number of years' experience, an underwriter might be in trouble if you actually hit the max, but it is the ultimate risk out there. You'd be at 2.173 million. 2,175,000, and when you divide that into 131 employees, you're looking at $16,592 per employee per year. In the private sector, you'd probably have a president or CEO having a heart attack over that, but it's very common in the public sector. Just a little bit further breakdown on that, at the expected cost, a 40-hour-a-week employee, this benefit is $6.76 an hour, and now under the Affordable Care Act, if you're not covering every employee at 30 hours, and you soon will be, at the expected cost, it's $9 per employee per hour. If you would ever hit the max cost, it's a little eye-dropping, it is $7.98 an hour, or at 30 hours a week, if you have anybody in that category, you'd be at $10.63 an hour. That's the value of the health plan. So, I have a direction that the Board of Supervisors would like to see a written and brief proposal that outlines a minimal of services to include a broker shopping the health plan and coming back with rates that mirror your plans identically. And so my proposal is very simple. I don't like to, I'm doing it on TV, I don't like to make a public announcement of this all the time, and I certainly don't like to always engage with it in the private industry with this type of situation, but the fact is there's oftentimes that we take people's data and we go out to market and we market and shop it and bring back proposals and we don't get paid anything. The only way we get hired is if our program gets picked up. And there's no reason that I'm not willing to do that for Carroll County. So, you know, within a month, or I've got a timeline back here, within a month or 6 weeks, in order to see a competitive proposal, it costs you nothing. If the proposal suits your needs, and it's something that you'd like to purchase, we'll put some type of broker compensation in there. We can talk about that, we can negotiate that, and I wasn't directed necessarily to bring that today. I didn't know if that's something that you'd later on want to do in a competitive process or sealed or whatever, but I can also tell you that in reviewing your current plan, what I've got approval from my management to do, it would certainly be far below any standard compensation that would be in this plan. So my outline says very simply, I mean, I could have done this in 5 minutes. Our marketing services are free of charge. I'll go do that for you. Somebody told me a long time ago that if you can predict the future, sometimes folks think that you're really smart, or at least you know what you're doing in your industry. So here's what I think I've got one other reason why you ought to engage with Cottingham and Butler and myself. When I get the extra data elements that I need from Courtney and go out to a couple of carriers that have equal, or in the case of Omaha, one of them now has, both of them have, that I'm thinking of, have a better network than the Blues, because there is a problem in Omaha right now with the Catholic Health Institutes, Creighton, and the Blues. When we come back with something that meets your current arrangement, this deal's gonna change. In fact, if we want to check, I'll glance at my timeline. I think that we can have preliminary rates back far in advance of when Wellmark will bring you their final proposal and options, and we've got, you know, be above board and tell them that you're out looking. I think that their initial renewal is gonna decrease, and they may get creative. And if I was the broker with Wellmark, I'd be doing the same thing. Now, it'd be fair for me to say, gosh, if I bring you $100,000 savings, and then Wellmark cuts their rates by $80,000 to keep your business, why don't you pay me 20% of that savings just for the marketing? But I really don't want to confuse the issue, because that's the risk I run. I can bring you a pretty good offer over here, and they're going to come and decrease their offer, I think. And you might stay with Wellmark and even pay a little more. It happens all the time. But let's say that we have a good offer over here in the right hand, the bird in the hand, and it's enough. They say, you know what, Wellmark, we're done. Here's our cancellation. We're going to be leaving on June 30th. As soon as that goes in, I do have one extra advantage at this point compared to most other brokers, is I could then say to Wellmark, one last look before you lose this group. Would you please bring Carroll County a proposal under the new Iowa Community Trust 2080 agreement? Cottingham and Butler is going to be the trust administrator on that. It's just getting put together. There are 2 public yeses going into the trust, Dubuque County and Hancock County. There's 2 or 3 more verbals that look like they're headed that way, and all the counties and cities that we're contacting right now, they're kind of all in the soup. So I did put that page at the back of the first tab. It isn't what I'm here today pushing, but I do think it's a major reason why you should work with me is if everything works out that we are going to go to a new carrier, I'm a person that can bring you. And what would be the advantage of the trust is it looks like it'll probably kick off with somewhere between 1,500 and 2,500 employees in it. So you spread the fixed cost across a larger segment, your fixed costs right now, your stop loss and your admin. This will be insured, but really, self-funded and insured programs work a lot the same behind the scenes. So Wellmark is gonna pool these. Each group's gonna get their increases based somewhat on the pool and somewhat on their own experience. There would be no monthly fluctuation up and down. If it's $400 a single and $1,000 a family, that's how much it is every month. They are guaranteeing, they're promising to have the renewals out in late January or early February. Imagine sitting at budget time and say, here's my renewal before your March deadline. So really, that is my, I guess that's my value proposition, is we do this all the time. We have the staff to do it. I've given you a timeline. We can go do this. The last point that I would have is that in these situations, this would be a value-added service that a broker can bring, is that our sister company, Cottingham and Butler, we have been doing a lot of eligibility audits on plans that have high enrollment and high family enrollment. We would project finding 8 or 9 ineligible dependents on this particular plan. We recently engaged a county in Illinois where we didn't even get into doing the eligibility audit. They just didn't have any contributions for the employees. And we so far have found 4 employees that have just remained on the plan for the last couple of years, and 4 of them were high claimants in a self-funded plan, like $100,000 a year each. So it's really tough in today's world, and divorces and families and children, and it's sometimes, and keeping people on until age 26, it's hard to know if everybody on your plan is really eligible. And when you're self-funded and you're acting as fiduciaries, if that hasn't been audited in a while, I've included a proposal for doing that. I like to just pause for a minute. Do you have questions for me?
Yeah, I appreciate your offer. I think it's very good that you would do the services and not charge if you can't help us. I'm confident that no matter who does our thing, if they're worth their salt, is going to find some savings for us. I think we're doing this with the understanding that there's some potential there for people in the business. So with that in mind, I think we need an idea what the charges would be if you are successful in saving us money, which I'm sure you will be. I see a little risk there. The risk-free part is if you can't save us money, we're done. But I need to have an idea what our charges will be if you are successful in putting us up with a better program.
Okay.
Because there's some risk there for us compared to someone who says, I'll do it for this flat amount. They maybe don't have the incentive you do, but I'm confident that they will get it done, and we know what our cost would be up front. So you see what I'm saying? I just want an idea what our cost will be if you are successful in finding a savings, because I'm pretty confident that you will find a savings.
Well, and there's a saying in the business too of buying the business. So I guess a couple things for you folks to think of is, what number would you move for? I mean, you're not going to move for $5,000 on 131 lives. So what numbers would you move for?
Sure.
To that, I would like to answer this way, Mr. Bach, is that the current stop loss premium for next year is about $440,000. Traditionally, brokers have worked on standard commissions of 10% of stop loss, $44,000. I'm not thinking, I'm thinking below that. I guess I don't have a proposal to give you. What I was looking to do was to work with the carriers, and the offer that I would put in front of you would have our brokerage fees in it, and I would be very willing, the day is gone of not being transparent, of showing to you whatever X they are. But what I'm going to bring you, if it's $100,000 in savings, it's $100,000 savings compared to your direct deal now, and we're getting compensated, and I'll tell you exactly what that number is. If you would move for $100,000 and there's $100,000 savings there, would you, if my compensation was $30,000 instead of $10,000, would you then not move? So, but I will be 100% transparent, and I came into this industry when I had gray hair, and the Attorney General in New York had Aon and Willis and all those folks on the runabout contingent commission. So I started doing a lot of work with people where I didn't take stop-loss commissions at all, and I put in a flat fee. And I'm not opposed to that, so much per employee per month. I'm wide open to it. It won't be $44,000. Though I do think there's a lot of value that can be brought here. I've looked at the employee contributions, the 15%, no matter, I'll give you an example. Being the sheriff's behind me. So it's 15% no matter what tier you elect, and it's 15% no matter what plan you elect. So the sheriff could hire 2 brand-new deputies, and one guy would be really young and healthy, or gal, and take the high deductible plan at the single level. He could hire another person who's like me, who's married with 5 children. They could take the low deductible plan and have 5 children and take the family. The difference in compensation is about $14,000 a year between those 2 people. One's $19,000 a year cost all in, and then subtract out the employee contribution, and the other one's about $5,000 all in. You know, why would one employee get 14? So that is the type, I mean, if we were engaged, that's the type of things that help you through union negotiations, and we have some really neat analytical tools that we will work on those type of things. But I would not, in a public meeting, I'm really not prepared to give you a
Sure.
number. Is that fair? Or can you not hire me without a number?
Oh, no, I didn't say that. I'm just saying that it's a little easier to compare if we did have a number, but I also appreciate the fact that you would be willing to work without compensation.
To bring these proposals.
And take the risk of a, there's a risk of failure on your part too, but I don't think it's very big. I think you'll be successful.
Well, I think there's a bigger risk is having savings, having a carrier who does this all the time, say, gosh, we gotta get at least, well, they'll pay a little more to stay with us, but we gotta lower down. So if we need to cut 80,000 out of it, Carroll County, and you stay direct with Wellmark, Carroll County and your taxpayers are the winners, and we live to try another day.
Yeah, that's who we're working for.
Yeah. I did mention there is a thing also termed buy the business. So if something looks really, really good, I mean, with this size group, we'd be in a position to maybe get 2nd-year rate guarantees, that leads, things that brokers think of that a lot of times a business doesn't think of when they're working direct with a carrier is, if we buy this, what will you guarantee us not to exceed next year? Can you give us any guarantees? How about if we go fully insured instead of self-funded? I candidly, I plan to approach a couple of carriers and ask them to look at this both self-funded and fully insured. And with that, I would ask the question, how would you feel about being self-funded, how would you feel about being fully insured, having the exact same payment every month, not have the claims fluctuations? Is that something that's appealing, or?
Being somewhat self-insured has worked for us, but we're a pretty small pool to be doing that on our own. I recognize that as well. You know, we're a little over 100 people insured. I think that's, we've been fortunate. And the only reason we've been doing it is because of the stop loss that we pay that keeps our losses in check. So we're a pretty small entity to be self-insured. I realize that.
I'd like to interject a little something here. Courtney and I found out is here in just a moment when Terry's done, we'll visit with you a little bit more about the presentations, proposals that 2 other brokers have made or suggesting to make. One of them just could not be here just due to a prior commitment, and the other one kind of got in a little late and could come here next week, but we've got some proposals here for you. But something that we learned in a call here on Friday, Terry, I think the board is, open to this process, but one high degree of hesitation that we all have is getting someone to buy our business. We call that the low ball.
Mhm.
And we're all confident someone will low ball us and buy us a business. And, something like the 2nd-year guarantee does take a little bit of that edge off, but those of us serving 4-year terms, that only gets us halfway through on that decision we just made. So what we kind of found out a little bit on Friday was one of the brokers said, well, here's what happens here's how lowballs happen. They don't intend to do it. They don't intend to just get you in there for 1 year. But essentially what you've got right now is Wellmark is the 600-pound gorilla in the state. They're making all the calls. They have in rural markets, they have about 80% of the market, and so they have the deepest discounts with the network providers. And they know that going into it. So they know they can get by. They don't accept a third-party administrator. So they know that they can get by with a little bit higher admin fees based on this. Is we go in there and you're with the new company and you're with the old company, let's just say hypothetically, and you go in across the street for the same $100 service. Okay? Wellmark has that purchased discounted down to 40%, whereas Brand X has that discounted only to 30%. So you each walk out of there with your $15 copay, and the rest is up to the administrator and the insurance company to take care of. Well, they're only going to be submitting a $35 claim in your behalf, so that goes against your claims and thus your claims experience. Whereas for you, they're submitting a $45 claim, and that goes against your claims and claims experience. You do that 300 and some odd times in a given year, and then that is what your claims experience looks like for the coming year, and that's what your rates get based on. Pretty simple to understand, really. And no one has the discount structure like the Blues has. And so they can't, the others can't compete as well on it because it's not a same level playing field. In the cities, he told us, in the cities it's a little bit more level because in the cities they don't write as much a book of business, whereas the other two major providers pretty much give the same discounts. But in rural markets such as ours, that's not the case. So, I think what the board is looking for is some assurances that this would be a long-term endeavor. We'd like to look at this, as another 23-year decision, perhaps. But I think, why don't you try and address that issue, and maybe if we can get our heads around that, we'll feel a little bit more comfortable. But once again, it's the risk that we have without having, and we appreciate your, free service.
Yeah.
We have one other broker that's the same way, by the way. But yet again, at the same time, we've got a hard dollar amount with the other one, so we know we can't exceed a certain amount. If we knew there was an amount we couldn't exceed, that would be most beneficial. Go ahead.
Well, that's interesting, because we do come from a self-funding heritage. I love to hear this, and there's a lot of truth in what you said. Again, in the free for marketing services, especially if you have an insurance task force that would like to put more time into it than at this table, I'll come back and I'd like to replace, that as an overview, what you're told is 100% true, but I'd like to dig down into the data to show you. And I'll give you an example, is that the discounts for a local DO or MD family practice doctor might be, in Carroll, might not be as good for Aetna or United, maybe not, as they are for the Blues. But if you add a whole bunch of those up during a year, does it really matter? First of all, if you can buy an insured plan that just is guaranteed savings, doesn't matter. Do you matter what the insurance carrier gets on the backside? If it's self-funded, the thing is that it still doesn't matter. I'm looking at your core report, and through a 1-year claims period, there's 1,499,139. We call it 1.5 million in claims paid. The question I get on that is, how much of those were huge claims in Omaha or Mayo? Courtney indicates there's a couple large claims. So if you go there and you head out of state, if you're using the Blues and their Alliance Select PPO, when they hit Mayo and they hit Omaha, some of those folks, they oftentimes have to pay off a Blue Card fee to the host home Blues, like Minnesota or Nebraska. United or Aetna are nationwide companies, so they have all their own direct contracts. So to really get into it, what you need to do is have a big list of the top 100 providers by tax ID, look at what the claim charges were there, and look what was paid and what was the discount, and bring that over to the new carrier. And before you switch, I bring the carrier rep right in here to sit down or his boss or her boss to explain, here's what we think you can expect if you go ASO, that's self-funded with us. There's a lot of claims about having the best discounts. And one of the things is, go get an insured quote and go get an insured quote. And so If they lose money on you in the back end, we don't really care. But yeah, the bigger thing would be, how many are hitting the really small mom and pop? You know, I from my neck of the woods, all I say is, Wellmark would come in and say, we've got, you're using Midlands and you're averaging 25% discounts at this local hospital. We average 40 across the state. Well, they don't get 40 in Macokota because the bill charge starts a lot lower. You know, you don't get a huge discount in Carroll as compared to Methodist or in Des Moines or the University of Iowa. The bill charge starts a lot lower. I'd rather keep Carroll local and a lot of these carriers that are help managing them. So really, it would just be a deep, again, we're gonna do that at no charge. It's really neat to be a deep dive in and see how much of your care is local, how much is the big claims that are.
How confident are you in finding a plan that best mirrors our current Wellmark plan?
Well, in this size group, the carriers, absolutely, they'll, I'm 100% confident self-funded. 100, I mean, they'll just match there's an 80-20 co-insurance and there's a 70-30. There's a $30 copay and a $20 copay, and one, the drugs are in the major med, and the other has a drug card. That's simple. What I would also say is, again, as the one broker that could bring this, if this is the winning proposal and you're ready to leave, just another minute on how the Iowa Community Trust would work. We can turn around those quotes in 5 business days. So those plans are off of a preset grid, and this is how currently there are some counties that are doing very well in these pool plans. So we go buy a $3,000 deductible, $6,000 maximum out of pocket. Let's say that costs $1.1 million. Wellmark, one of the reasons they're willing to work with Cottingham on this is that then what you do is you split fund or buy down that $3,000 deductible down to your $750, the $3,000 deductible down to the $1,500, probably buy a $30 office visit for everybody, and the people that elect the 20, you buy it down. And the same thing on the co-insurance. So it's called split funded. Those claims will automatically roll over to our sister TPA, Cisco. So if you look and say, okay, it's $1.2 million in fixed costs, but we think that it's gonna cost $400,000 to self-fund, you add that all up, you're at $1.6 million in your $200,000, and you mirror the plans identically with Wellmark.
I get it.
So. And, you know, if you, I don't know if you're prepared to make a decision today, if you want to hold a special meeting, you know, I would say that we would do a minimal of brokerage services, and is need to let me know if I need to have some type of written proposal of, if we bring the winning proposal, you know, what we're not to exceed, you know, on an ongoing basis. I kind of working off a minimal of the kind of the RFP request.
Sure.
I guess he's brought some good ideas to the table today. I don't disagree with any of it. And I decided we need to move forward and put some numbers together. I don't know what the consensus of the other board members are, but I think until we get everything on the table, we don't know. But the other thing is, we've got 2 other proposals to come in next Monday. So I mean, in all fairness, we have to listen to those proposals also.
We actually have the proposals.
Okay.
We just haven't had a oral presentation as such. I mean, I think Courtney and I are fairly well versed in their proposals and everything that was said. We only had verbal dialogue with one together. I had verbal dialogue with the other one. But, you know, one of them is similar to Terry's, where they're willing to take it on at no cost or no obligation, whereas the other one does have a cost attached to it. And it's less than $44,000.
I'm sure.
Okay. Well, we need to look them all over here in our meeting. Obviously, we're not gonna make a decision at this next 5 minutes. You understand that? Yeah.
Okay.
Is this the first you guys have had a chance to review this? I mean, the other 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Well, then, we're gonna certainly need another week to make another
Yeah.
You know, and whether or not we choose to have them here formally is certainly up to, you know, whatever the board's wishes are. I can certainly reach out to them, and I'm not sure if one of them will be back or not, but the other one certainly is available next Monday. You know my feelings on it, gentlemen. I'm willing to do one of these. I think it's time to, one thing that was shared with us, that I think we can certainly say, is when we select a broker, Courtney will be asked to collect some information, and that goes back to Wellmark. And when we have to go back to Wellmark and we ask them for a census and claim runs and things like that, that is a signal to them, hello, Wellmark, we are shopping you,
The red flag.
okay?
Yep.
You know, this is, this is what gets told me every single day, we're used to it. But these guys haven't been used to it. We have a new representative that's her first time with us. She has no experience or history with Carroll County. But someone will recognize that we're shopping them. He believes that that alone is enough to get them to come in with lower than expected rates than what they would have normally had to in April to begin with. Now, whether or not that's going to be, you know, a significant savings or not still depends on how they want to view that. But we've also been told that Wellmark doesn't care about Carroll County. I think that's different. I don't think that's true. I think they'd love, you know, don't want to see us lose their business, but that we're pretty small potatoes to them, right?
Heard that?
So, you know, whether or not they'd get truly, you know, down and dirty and truly competitive, you know, remains to be seen. But once we trigger that, that is going to put them on notice, you know, that we're, and there's, none of us need to call Terry and let her, the other Terry, Teresa, I think was her name, that we need to, you know, hey, we're gonna be shopping. This alone will do it.
Can I interject? And at a
Sure,
public
that's fine.
meeting they're going to hear, I would mention, it seems a little bit difficult on the Wellmark website with the login and password. Certainly you have one for billing and get in there, and sometimes they make it more difficult to get in and see claims. But normally our standard steps, which I didn't detail here, but we would engage with a business associate agreement that covers protected health information and HIPAA and that type of stuff. And and I'm over here a lot. In fact, I'm gonna be back through here Wednesday, through part of the weekend. But I was even thinking if Courtney has the proper login and password credentials, we would have somebody that could either work with her or I can help her. Really what we need is claims by month for a couple of years, along with a census and de-identified large claims. You know, you pull things like that off the website. If it isn't, sometimes they make it difficult. You gotta email and wait 7 days to get your password and your PIN back, which is very frustrating because it is your data. People say, give me my darn data. The other thing, you can contact your direct rep, and you know, she might say, we can get this to you in a couple days, or we can get this to you in a couple weeks, but everything you need is there. It is there.
Terry, let me ask you this. I think we can do this. I don't want to disclose what we've been quoted, but we were told that the average brokerage charges between $15 and $20 per month per member. Is pretty average.
I would think, not necessarily per member, maybe per employee.
Depends
what you're calling a
I'm
member.
sorry, employee, yeah, not belly button, but.
Not belly, yeah.
Correct.
And my employee, not, because you're 323 on members?
Yep.
And 131.
Yes, so $15 to $20 per employee per month. Would Cottingham's be higher or lower or in that range?
Be in that range.
Okay, that's what I needed to know, and I'll share that.
And I
with
feel
you.
your pain. I was a city council member in Farley. I'll never forget trying to pick an engineer for a wastewater treatment plant. And they kept bringing their RFQs or their qualifications, and a guy had become a friend of mine. I said, darn it, how do I pick you without a price? And he said, we'll all be close to the same. I mean, Holmes Murphy is a very professional organization. Number 25, we're number 37, they're number 1, we're number 2. They're good Iowa companies. I commend you for working with a broker to do this. We're gonna be in the same price range. And then I didn't get it when I was a city council member, and then I went to work for Cottingham and Butler. 5 years later, I'm like, oh, that's what that engineer was talking about. Everybody's gonna be in, we are a for-profit company. So, but we would be right in that range,
Perfect. Thank you.
okay?
Any other questions? I'd like to thank Terry for his expertise today.
Thank you.
Excellent
Presentation.
It's kind of a
Excellent.
sick thing, we like this stuff.
All right, thank you, Terry.
Terry.
I'll keep in touch with you, Terry.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, too.
Okay, with that, we go on to the second item on the agenda, is sheriff deputy resignation. Doug?
That makes two.
This isn't a trend, is it?
I don't know. I
When he
never had this
was-
problem for 20 years, 22 years, and all of a sudden, in the last 2 months.
Yeah, when-
Anyway.
When he used the sheriff hiring 2 people, he didn't know how right he was.
That's exactly right. I'm looking over my shoulder. Well, Lisa is resigning as of the 20th of this month. I just wanted to give you an update where we were at. We were getting ready to hire, we had the physical agility and the post test that is required to, so we had 13 applications out that we got back. The other day, we went back to test. We had one from another county that was testing for another county, and we had 6 show up for testing. We went out for the physical agility, 2 of them did not pass the physical agility. 3 come back in, 1 passed one did not pass the post test. And if they take a post test somewhere else, they can use that score. So we ended up with 2. Not saying that they're not good candidates, but we think we need to open it up a little further to get more candidates to pick from. Excuse me, we had 3 that made it. One we definitely know that we're not gonna even bother with, so it ended up with 2. Neither one of these are certified people. They cost between 25 to 35, maybe higher, to send them through the academy. Not that that's an issue, but we still need to, we feel that we need to look a little further. So we're gonna basically be putting out to hire again. But this brings up to the point, we're gonna be short for probably a couple months. So basically what we're saying is, with Kevin retiring and Lisa's leaving, it's gonna leave us with a little money. We have a couple guys that are willing to work some overtime to make up for that. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that that's a situation that's gonna happen. You're gonna see some overtime coming in from a couple of the guys, and, we're not gonna go over as much. We'll watch it very closely so that situation doesn't go over the line item in that area. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that.
Doug, as far as going through the whole process, again, what time frame are you kind of looking at, hopefully having somebody hired by her?
We're hopefully, well, Ken and I talked about it again this morning, and we're gonna open it up again, like probably next week. Hopefully have the first week in April, have the applications back in. We have to give the people down for the post test 2 weeks. So we're talking, hopefully, by the time we get interviews done, probably by the end of April, somewhere in there, probably the first couple of weeks in May, we should have somebody in place, hopefully.
Okay.
You said that you might have to run them through the academy, like that might not be an issue. Is that a requirement or a recommendation or just your wishes? I forget how that goes.
Okay. If you have a certified officer, you can basically, he's
Walk
already
right in.
certified he's been through the academy, he doesn't need to go again. If you have a 4-year degree, you can go through the short course, or, excuse me, the short course would be for a 4-year or a 2-year degree. Short course is one in Hawkeye, is in over by Cedar Rapids, and then they also have one up in Sioux City. That's 4 to 5 weeks. So you got the short course for that, or you have one that's never been through the academy. That's 15 weeks,
Okay.
and that's down in Polk County, or down in Des Moines, and you know.
That's all on, yeah.
So you don't think you're gonna find a certified officer?
I'm not saying we can't.
Yeah.
What we got right now isn't, and I'm not saying that we, you know, both of these that we have left, one has got a 4-year degree, one's got a 2-year degree. I know he's still 5, you know, but you look at them and with the, couple of them that have no experience whatsoever, and they're just out of college, you know, do they know what they're actually up against? I'm not saying that they may not be the right candidates, but right now we want to go a little further to see if we can find somebody, you know.
So it's possible to, to say that you probably won't have anybody in a car for 4 months.
Oh, Dean, I think by the end of May, we will have, or by May, we'll have somebody, and they will be in the, and then, let's say that we don't have a certified officer, we have a year to get them to the academy, so we can basically self-train some of it first, and then in that year's period of time, get them into the
They
academy.
can get, okay, they can get their certification as they're going along?
No,
No.
no, they still have to go through the
Right.
academy, if they have no training. Yeah.
What's the danger, Doug, of hiring somebody, get them to the academy, then they jump to another job because they're certified? Is there any guarantee or anything that they have to,
No, and a lot of times, what they're doing now is we got young officers that are basically going to small police departments and going through the academy, and then as soon as they get out of there, they're going to a bigger and better place. And they're under contracts, a lot of them are under contracts with the towns, that if they leave, they have to pay them, the people back.
so are we gonna have some kind of stipulation?
You know, if that's the case, I think we need to have something.
I think there should be for a certain period of time, or we're
Yeah.
just, the train.
A stepping stone, yes.
Sure.
But like I said, in the 22 years that I've been here through the sheriff's office, we never had, you know, just went with basically retirement and, you know.
I think that situation maybe changed a little bit when you're reaching out further, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
it's more likely to happen, I think, under this scenario than if you, say, hire somebody from Coon Rapids or something, you know, that's
Yeah.
a little more stable situation.
How far do you reach out?
Well, we had some of them from, we went on our website through the ISSDA,
Okay.
and then we just did locally, in the paper and locally.
What are you gonna do differently to reach out more?
Well, there's apparently a municipality place that you can order that's free of charge, that you can go through municipality.
Municipality.
That's it. And then
Cities.
basically that we can get, reaches out to more.
Okay. Or we try to hire somebody that's just gotten certified, right?
Well, that could happen also, you know.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to give you a heads up, this is where we're at.
Okay.
Not to be a surprise when you all of a sudden see something coming up with the bills, basically saying, well, why is this guy getting so much money? You know, and that's the reason why.
Sure.
So
Hey,
you're
Doug.
saying you could hire somebody if they haven't gone through academy, you can have them work and be kind of on-job trained, and then, but within a year,
They
go
have to
through
be.
the academy then?
Yes. Yeah. And I've talked to them at the academy, and that every quarter, they've got an academy going through, so.
I think you're handling the process right. I appreciate you sharing the information, and I'd rather you make a good decision than a quick decision just to get it done.
Yeah.
Well, that's, you know, we know we'd like to get somebody in place, but also, you know, we want somebody that's gonna work well with the people of Carroll County and also, you know, and not have a year under the belt and just take off for somewhere else. We wanna make sure that they work with everybody and make sure that we have somebody that's decent, you know, so,
In the meanwhile,
yes.
tell everybody no one stubbed their toe.
That's exactly right. No, we don't get no sickles, yeah,
Yeah,
So-
everybody wash their hands.
yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty thin pickings.
yeah, so.
All right.
I just wanna give you guys a head up, that's where we're at, so, you know, don't be surprised, okay?
All right.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay, with that, we'll go down to letter of resignation here, and we need a motion to approve that letter of resignation.
With regrets.
Yeah.
Okay, a motion motion and a second.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay, with
Kind of a
that.
unique situation for Carroll County, isn't it?
Very much so.
Got a lot of turnover here in court, all over the courthouse.
Yep.
Look at our
Yeah.
department heads. Employees.
Okay, with that, we'll go down to Region 5 Hazmat Foundation appointment.
As I pointed out last time, they started this foundation and they need a representative from each of the counties that are involved. And I would be glad to accept the appointment and just work it with, the meetings will be coincided then.
Well, I think it always a natural fit that you're gonna be
Yeah.
on another board, you'd be on this, so I would make a motion that we appoint Dean to the Region 5 Hazmat Foundation.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to appoint Dean Shetler to the Region 5 Hazmat Foundation. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay, with that, we can go down to secondary roads, Dave?
Are you gonna do the remaining?
Yeah. Vehicle.
Morning, everybody.
Hi, David.
Good morning, Dave.
I think first thing on the agenda is that uniform policy. Got it in here someplace, but we were talking last week about headsets. Had you given that any more thought, or? Pass this around, see down at the bottom where that would come out of the clothing allowance.
Any thoughts?
I had some serious reservations about this last week, and I still have them this week.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I just, if we start here with headsets, where do we go from there? I mean, there's a lot of as technology advances, it's just gonna keep rolling, I feel.
It's certainly not a fiscal concern. It's out of their allowance that they would normally be using anyway. It's just mostly I thought about it a ton. And interesting how I was paying attention to people on the road and not just private or public sector ones, but sure see a lot of this, driving down the road. And it's just a safety consideration, the way I see it. But then does it add to safety or does it detract from safety? And my thoughts fundamentally would be, I would like to do all that we could to discourage cell phone use throughout the county. And we have radios. If they do need to pull over, they need to pull over. So I'm pretty much of that vein too. I think that if we're gonna err on the side, I would rather err on the side of discouraging cell phone use.
Yeah, I saw a truck driver going down the other day, like this, with his cell phone. The better option there would have been if he had a headset and, and he was using it, But I would have to agree with the rest of the board right now that I would just discourage cell phone use completely unless you pull over. So it's a distraction.
Same thing. I can see it's a safety issue, but I guess where's the stop?
And I would agree with Mark as far as the dollar thing. I mean, that's coming out of there. What's allowed, I mean, it's not a dollar deal. It's just a safety.
Then when they get out of the truck, do they take the headset off, and what do they do with it? And do they wear it? And I don't know. I think we all understand the balance that we're encouraging something that's unsafe, but if the usage would be static, it would improve the safety.
Yeah.
And we all battle that. Overall, I think it would be the correct decision to add it in.
I think I've got my,
You got your answer?
Got your answer,
Thank
Dave.
you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you for your careful.
I mean, we
thought.
can't, one thing is we cannot discourage them to use headsets. I mean, if they, we're just,
No, And I think
The safety.
many of them have chosen to do so.
yeah, yeah.
On their own already.
That's Yep.
I just had a question from a fellow. I appreciate you addressing it. It's- Some of the stuff's seemingly easy, but not.
Mhm.
Drains, I have two drains, drain 66 and drain 67. Neil will be glad to hear that drain 66 is a problem again. It's on the old Don O'Connor's ground. There's a hole in the waterway, a couple holes, in fact. There's the map. And next drain is drain 67. It looks like it's got a broken tile north of the bulkhead by standing corn stalks. Ronnie Schultes brought that in. It's, I think, between 7 and 8 in Union Township, near 295th and Timber. That's the
Oops.
other way.
That one's down by Carrollton Cemetery, isn't it?
So, yeah, yeah. How'd you know that, Mike?
Been there before?
It's real close, yeah.
Yep. Been on this one before, too.
I know about that. It's one of them motions I would make with regret.
That's a very popular drain, I think it's.
It is.
Yeah.
It's an expensive drain to be on.
In fact, I think we've got to do those drain assessments one of these days, don't we?
We have had issues with this already, too.
Yeah. I've got the math done, but maybe this will change it.
About 2 years ago.
What,
Richland, sorry.
15 of Richmond?
Yeah.
You know, what's amazing though, is the tile lines is how slow they're running as much moisture as we've had. We're just looking at it, it's just.
Yeah, but it's pretty dry.
I know, I was just looking at some of the
Yep.
drainage issues yesterday with a guy. It's amazing, those tiles are running slow.
Yep.
This one's
7 and 8?
7 and 8, I guess it really looks like it's in 7 at the end.
I'll make a motion when you get approved, I think, get it fixed.
A motion, need a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion and second to repair drain 66 and drain 67. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next is the resolution for destruction of noxious weeds, Dave.
Annual resolution for the destruction of noxious weeds. It's basically the same every year, just changing the date, but it does have to be approved by the supervisors. It's getting to be about that time. We still haven't found a weed man. We thought we had one found, so our end of it. There's another fellow we're gonna have to go to and look and see.
The other guy didn't want to do it, did
Yeah, that's, yeah. A little bit of a longer story, but.
There's a new invasive weed that agriculture's talking about. You know which one that is, Marty? Is that on this list? It's in several counties down in southeast Iowa. And they say that it's,
They'd have to amend the code to put it on
really?
there. Yeah, because all this comes out of 3.
I'm just curious. I don't think I see it on here.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm sure I would recognize it if I did, but.
I can't think of what it would be right off the top of my head.
Yeah. Not a big deal.
I think it takes quite a bit to get on this list.
Is butterprint, is that buttonweed? Is it the buttonweed? Is it buttonweed on there?
it? That's velvet leaf.
Velvet leaf.
Yeah.
There's no other questions. I make a motion to approve resolution number 2015-007.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second, and this is a resolution, so it's roll. Yes.
Bearden?
Yes.
Shetler?
Yes.
Miners?
Yes.
Bach?
Yes.
Motion carries. You want to sign yours or mine, or?
Yours, maybe I better
You
pay
sign.
for that.
Oh, I
So that way, Dan.
We all got to sign.
I had a request from a farmer or landowner, put some gravel on Level B Road. If I could add that to your agenda.
I'll make a motion, we add it to the agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to add a level B road for gravel to the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same. Motion carries.
Charlie Smith called, I believe it's between 28 and 33, there's a Level B road there, 270th Street. Get that right here, no, excuse me, 265th Street.
You said on the east end of that road?
On the east end where the bins are,
Yeah.
yeah. Says we've gravelled it in the past. Alright didn't remember any recent past graveling, but there's a short stretch in there back to his bins to where we gravelled it. He'd be willing to pay for it, he
I
said.
said section 27, 28 and 33, but what township?
Richland.
Richland, thank you.
Township. Okay, I think I know where that, just south and east of my dad's place, Ralph's place.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. How long of a stretch is that for?
A very long quarter-mile.
Quarter-mile,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's- he's got some bends back there.
He's got some
Yeah,
bins back there, yeah.
machine shed.
Yeah.
It's kind of a stop in the middle there. They, Simons and comes in from the other side. They've got some land in there that they have to come in from
They've
the
got
west side.
land all over, him and Marlene have got land all the way through there, but I don't know that they come in that way.
They
They must-
come in from the east.
I think it's mainly a bin issue.
Smiths would come in from the east and Simons would come in from the west. And then there's an area in the middle that nobody uses.
Yeah.
So Simons could request to have gravel on theirs as well.
You know,
This is
that-
dirt. Well, I guess his is.
That part is pretty good, really, for a level B.
I just talked to Pete yesterday, he didn't make any mention of it.
No, they got some bends back there. It's a pretty good level B where they are. They just don't haul when it's really raining out.
Yeah.
That on the east end's more of a floodplain, kind of, it goes through there and just kind of.
I don't recall adding any in the recent past, but it's always been gravel to the bin site.
How much do you think it's gonna take?
I'm thinking 2-3 loads.
He said he would.
He would pay for it. We haven't done that to anybody else other than somebody that wanted to upgrade a level B road. We've had some other requests from landowners and we have done it.
I have no issue if he wants to pay for it, and it would still be a level B road as far as snow and everything is concerned, you know. That would be acceptable to me.
Oh, we've had one that has added something on its own.
But he wants the county to put it on, he's not gonna have a local. He's not-
Yeah, and we have paid to gravel some of these level B roads when requested in the past.
You know, Dave, would that be a possibility, just putting crushed concrete on that one? Or would there be any savings?
Or do we not want to give up the crush?
On a level B?
I think I'd probably not want to.
On a level
I
B.
would save that
Yeah.
for a better road.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Probably give them some goulet gravel or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, something close. Yeah, makes sense.
I have no problem with gravel, a couple loads or whatever it takes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any problem. Need a motion for that, or?
Yeah, probably should.
And he's paying for it?
He's paying for it.
Just want to make sure we talk.
We haven't-
Well,
we haven't-
nobody else paid for it except for we've had one guy add some.
We've had one guy add some on his own, but we've
And I
also.
would have just assumed we hadn't gotten that stuff,
Yeah,
right?
right. Yeah.
Basically, looking at.
We've made them pay for an upgrade from A to B, but so far, when they've requested us to put a little gravel on, we've generally done it at our expense.
But in the past, we've graded some, or gravel some of these by paid for ourselves, when they
Yeah.
request for it.
Yeah.
And if it's needed, I mean, it's gotta be, if he's got bins, there determines the need.
Mhm.
I'll make a motion that we approve gravel, that level, that section B.
Need a second?
Assuming they're just talking about the east side.
Yeah.
Or, excuse me, the.
Just that
east-
quarter
east
mile there
corner,
to the
quarter
base.
mile.
Yep.
And you're thinking 2, maybe 3 loads?
Yeah. Yeah, there'd be no reason to get carried away there, because there's hardly any traffic on it.
Did you get a second?
No,
Marty?
we
I'll
haven't.
second that.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to gravel the portion of the Level B Road on 265th Street. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, that should do it.
I think that's all I got other than the road tour.
Okay, we just got a few manure management plans and committee reports, and we'll be done.
Okay, sounds great.
Start the air conditioning.
Doesn't work.
Well, why
Well, then
not?
get started on it.
But the pleasant fragrance has more or less left.
Oh, jeez.
Do you have all 4 windows open, Kevin?
It doesn't smell too bad. They did something to disguise it.
I brought a change of clothes.
Thank you, good.
Okay, we'll go to manure management plans next. We've got about 7 of those today. The first one is in section 13 of Eden Township. That one is an annual update. The next one is in section 30 of Arcadia Township, and that is crop rotation and manure analysis. And then we've got 5 of them from the old Elite Finishers that went to New Fashion Pork. The one is in section 34 of Grant Township, one in section 6 of Union Township, section 5 of Neese Township, section 13 of Union Township, section 9 of Union Township, and these are all original manure management plans. So that's all we've got for the manure management plans today. And with that, we'll go down to committee reports. You want to start off again?
Sure.
I got you. Sit down, Courtney.
Okay. Start with a legislative update here. There's a House File 468 passed 93-2, and that had to do with the mental health advocates. I think I explained a while back where these are paid for by counties but employed by the judicial. And the problem with that is that as it is written, this new legislation, it said counties, it is made clear in the bill that counties and the regions are not allowed to interfere with decisions made by the mental health advocate. But I think the problem is some of their expenses and stuff of one in particular have just gone haywire. And in addition to that, it kind of grandfathers the current employees in that were on board July 1st. So it's going to be a long time correcting the issue in our region, is what it sounds like to me. Okay, and then Dave just left, but I see in our supervisor postings that we get here that we're encouraged to do a press release that identifies what projects we plan on doing with our additional road use tax fund. So that's something we talked about today.
Mhm.
And then later on maybe explain how the funds are actually used. And then I mentioned last week where there was a meeting about the biogas business considering coming to Carroll County. There is going to be a meeting on March 18th, and Shannon Landauer emailed me and asked if I could attend. I don't know if any of you got that or they just sent it to me, but I will attend that meeting. It's at 9 o'clock Wednesday morning, and I'm sure up to 2 of us could be there. And if you'd contact her, if we'd like him on the supervisory role. But this is very preliminary, and kind of the manager of the whole thing is Jim Venner, and I think maybe he pointed it towards me because he knows me very well, but I would be glad to have another supervisor there, and I think you can get invited. Okay?
We're probably gonna be gone that
Yeah, we
day.
got the Highway 30
Is
published.
Shannon gonna be there?
Shannon?
She's
Landauer?
probably
Shannon's not gonna be at Highway 30, she told me that.
Okay, so she's probably
I
gonna be
think
at
she's
this.
gonna be
At
at 9
this.
o'clock Wednesday morning at the
Okay.
chamber office.
Then that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And then, before I get to my main committee report, I just want to mention also where I got some, the preliminary agriculture productivity values are in, and the growth in that value has really slowed down. It looks like there's an average increase on the state of about $1 per acre. And that'll be on the assessments. Landowners should get them about April 1st, but they'll go into effect on this fall's taxes. And then, the major thing I had was with Rolling Hills on Tuesday. Some of the major things we talked about is we had talked about a regional community and employment proposal. Pat Lorenzen, they're proposing to, what they're basically doing is trying to place people in jobs who have mental issues, and we approved for them to do that. We also had a big issue we talked about with the crisis stabilization proposals, and we had 2 proposals on that. One was from Plains area, and the other one was from Mallard View. Both proposals were quite costly. Each had their advantages and disadvantages. I think each of these entities, both Mallard View and Plains, have been asked to submit further details on their proposal. We didn't have enough to make a decision, and we did appoint a committee that's going to go through both proposals. So I think it would be great if Mallard View could get it. I didn't get on this committee. I think it would have been a little bit of a conflict of interest since Carroll County owns the property at Mallard View. But I think the people that are on it are going to give it a fair shake, and I hope Mallard View ends up with the contract there, but we'll see how that ends up. Then we went over the budget, and we've had to tweak the budget a little bit because of some extra cost, and one of the costs is the proposed crisis stabilization. It looks like the $35 per capita for this year, of course, is going to stay the same, but they had to tweak it up to about $38 per capita for FY17 and further on. Those are the major issues, but the crisis stabilization was the key issue that we spent most of our time talking about. That was my week. Are there any questions?
Gene?
Okay, I'm gonna kind of keep mine short, brief, so we keep moving here. But on Tuesday, we had our CADC meeting we had over in Greene County with a joint meeting with the Go Green community. Went through a couple things, what we could work together with, like the Highway 30 deal, and also about using DMAC versus Iowa Central. It actually winds up that Jefferson's kind of an island there with Iowa Central, so we don't know what that takes to change that around. And went through what projects each community was going through. Then on Wednesday, I was down to ISAC for, Capitol Day, and Dean and I spent some time with Representative Brian Best. And then that afternoon, later on, I had executive board meeting for supervisors. And one of the things that was brought out there is exactly what you said about put out these news release in regard to where we're spending this money, keeping track of where it's going. And probably the big topic that we talked about at the executive board meeting is we are looking at moving this supervisors annual meeting from out at Ankeny to downtown Des Moines. One of the reasons why this year we couldn't get too many legislators there, leadership, and because of timing and travel distance, so we're looking at possibly moving downtown. I think that's going to happen. It's either going to be at Marriott or over at Embassy Suites. So, and then the rest of the week I spent in ISAC, and I thought there was a lot of good meetings there, very good attendance, a lot of good subjects, I thought. And then on Saturday I went to the legislature. That was my week.
My week was basically spent in Des Moines on the Supervisors Day at the Capitol on Wednesday. I ran into Jamie Cashman and addressed the email that you had sent him, and he couldn't recall getting it.
I'll resend it and ask for a reply.
But you
I
know,
also-
when I talked to him, he recalled it.
Oh,
I won't send him one. I'll ask for a reply.
Take care of the baby.
I talked to Bill Heckroth about the same letter, and he wanted, they were gonna have a meeting the next morning, and he would like a copy, so I emailed him a copy
Okay.
of it as well, and discussed it as well with Brian Best, and he would like you to send a copy. So, Thursday, there was a good breakout session on courthouse safety, and they, so, you know, their suggestion, I mean, they were very concerned about, there was some threats in some northeastern counties of a, they called him Dean B, who is making threats to the courthouse offices and actually making some appearances. And this gentleman suggested go over security plan department by department, have a drill, and discover where your weaknesses are. So, I mean, that's something that the Security and Safety Committee might address in the future. Mary Mosman was, by the way, this Dean B is now in prison because he did do something, you know, that landed him in prison. So it was a very interesting session with Mary Mosman. The Iowa State Auditor covered state budget, current deficit spending, Medicaid, and its lack of full funding up until 2021. Spent a lot of time on government employee fraud and embezzlement. I thought that was pretty interesting, but she spent a lot of time on it. Ran into Doug Strike, an attorney for the Iowa Drainage District Association. He brought to my attention a California lawsuit thrown out because the plaintiff could not prove source of contaminated water. This would have to do with the lawsuits that were filed on Friday, or the lawsuits that were filed on Friday. Also pointed out that, that by code, the duties of the supervisors of the drainage district is to make sure that drains are maintained properly and operating properly, as we did this morning. And that is our duties and only our duties. Drainage districts are designed to take water away from water-saturated farm ground and transport it to large bodies of open waters like creeks and rivers. County supervisors are not responsible for the water that flows through those drainage tiles. Also, the judge in the case has the discretion to determine if it is a frivolous case and all expenses related to the case be paid by the plaintiff. So, I mean, if, you know, the suit should come to, they've got some liabilities.
It's very difficult to get a frivolous case because Iowa feels that everybody should have their day in court. So it happens, but it's very difficult.
Had a discussion with Jack Seward, who is on my broadband committee with me, although moving forward, the direction appears to be the same. However, Jack is a Washington County supervisor, and I asked him about the Washington County budget and salaries, et cetera. We addressed that, how high they were, and it was very interesting. He indicated there was a lack of transparency over the, probably the last 8 years or 10 years. He is a newly elected supervisor, and as well as another newly elected supervisor this election cycle. They bonded an $8 million bond for secondary roads without public approval. The compensation board would recommend 6 to 10% increases, and the board of supervisors would follow those recommendations without hesitation. The last two elections, the board completely was out. New board then froze wages going forward. Also, he made the comment that it appeared that the board had made their decisions many times before the meetings were ever held. Very little discussion. They would vote and they would pass. They also, any attendees at the meetings, with the help of a stopwatch, they got 3 minutes. So basically what happened is, you know, there was very little transparency, and now there's a whole new board in place in Washington County.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
Glad
it
you're
was
making one.
interesting for him to talk
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
But also, he did make the comment that their county basically gets $7,000 a week from the Riverside Casino. which does help.
Yeah.
And that was my week, other than being sick the last day of the meeting down there.
Thanks. Mark?
I'll be brief too. No official committee reports, but my week was filled with insurance business. As of last night, counted up 18 emails and no less than 9 phone calls, so it was pretty dominated with insurance. And then Friday, we did sit and had a verbal proposal from Holmes Murphy. And Courtney, thanks for being my second pair of ears on that. And then Friday, I met with Ken Belt and Ray Ann Meyer. They thought there was some errors in the ambulance contract, and something about reading it on an iPad. It jumbles all those numbers up, because when I showed him right in front of me, there's everything lined up perfectly. So we just, added that language as far as, year 2 and year 3, so the annual salary. So I sent them to Courtney on Friday, and they should be picking them up, and we should be getting those done. March 15th, I believe, was yesterday. So, and then Saturday was at a legislative forum.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Mine's very brief. I just had to sign checks last Wednesday at Region 12. Friday, I visited with Jacqueline Zerbs on the Verizon Tower issue, and we're gonna put that on the agenda for next Monday. Basically, where that's sitting at right now is currently we have 9 and 10 amounts on there, and that contract that we have is set up for 12 and 10 amounts. So in discussing it with her on Friday, there would be no additional leasing or rent on that. And so I wanted to bring it to the board, and we're gonna talk to her next Monday via phone and see what the status is, kind of go forward from there. So that's set up for next Monday. Then on Saturday, went to the legislative forum, and a lot, like Neil mentioned, there's a lot of it talking about the mental health. It's kind of interesting, I thought, as far as the 2 institutions in Clarinda and Mount Pleasant that they're looking at closing up. That was gonna be done immediately, and now they're kind of putting it off till the end of June or end of the fiscal year. So we'll see where that goes. And then yesterday I went out and on grade 102, we had some issues with beaver dams there last fall. We did trap the beaver out of it, and we've gotta get those knocked out. So I'm gonna visit with Dave a little bit on that, see if we can get that done here within the next week or so. That's all I have.
Marty, could I back up?
Sure.
Has anybody else got this from NACO in regard to April being county month? I don't know if somebody wants to think about if we want to do something or not. I forgot to bring it up. And also, I will say too, on that, down at ISAC, that lawsuit was a main subject every day, about every half hour.
Yeah.
Maybe we could coincide what we plan on doing with our RUTIF money with county month. I don't know, just a offhand remark, but just something to think about.
Your what?
We're supposed to, it'd be good to do a press release about what we're gonna do
Transparency.
with our road
okay.
tax.
Road tax.
Maybe that would go with the county month. I want to go back to insurance. Are we gonna have the other proposals Monday and make a decision Monday?
If they'll be available, I knew one of them for sure will be.
Okay.
And I'll have to get back with them, and I'll ask, maybe I'll copy Courtney on them, just so we make sure we got them in a timely fashion on the agenda.
Can have on Monday. Okay, very good.
Courtney, do you have anything? Any comments from those in attendance?
According to the statement on the radio, there was no public present for your budget hearing. I don't think that's correct.
That's incorrect.
And I'd
You were
like
here.
to,
I did, okay.
I'd like to know what your definition of public is.
It was on the radio, you said?
Yes, several times.
Well, we're not the ones that said it on the radio.
Yeah.
No, but I believe the chairman did. And I got a lot of flack about that, not being here when I was, and I made a statement.
Yes, you did. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay. Terry?
I could, if it helps you, I don't know if you're prepared to make a decision with the other, it's 2 Iowa brokers and some from out of state. I can leave Courtney it's not typewritten, it's not formal, but this is a proposal of what I would not exceed. And being you'll indulge me maybe one more minute, I would just say the other thing I think like a broker could bring to the table, I've put a proposal on here what it wouldn't exceed on the medical. The other thing is, I think we would take the life insurance that's in place and go market that. There's probably savings there. We oftentimes do like a fee basis on things like the medical, but then leave regular commissions. A thought that if you've been working with a broker out of years, I'll give you an example of something your employees might love that doesn't cost the county anything. Would be like a group dental plan, purchased completely on a voluntary benefit. So people can at least get at orthodontia and stuff for their children, so it's their own money out of pocket. You save the 7.65 of all the FICA taxes. My back of the napkin calculations say if people took something like that up at the same rate as the medical with their own money, they get a nice benefit on a group basis. We would normally leave, smaller than normal, but some type of compensation in that as a broker for bringing it forth. And then probably the payroll savings would be $8,000 or $10,000 that you'd save in the matching FICA. It's a win-win-win. Things like, voluntary term life insurance. Dental's a big one that people clamor for. So, and you can pay for them pre-tax underneath your section 125. So I'll just leave this with Courtney if that's okay.
That's fine.
Sure.
All right? Thank you.
Thanks again.
Very much for everything.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Thanks,
too, Terry.
Terry.
Okay, with that, we're in order for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.